when everything is upside down, when you're yelling but you make no sound, life is gonna spin you round. Whoa, and get a little bit stranger. When everything is upside down, a tremor in the underground. The nights are gonna take this town. Whoa, and get a little bit stranger, stranger. Push the kinetics, a troubled spirit breaking through. A bitter debt to repay now. But don't you dread it, a friend would never lie to you, helping you get through the pain now. And when everything is upside down, when you're yelling but you make no sound, life is gonna spin you round. Whoa, and get a little bit stranger. When everything is upside down, a tremor in the underground. The nights are gonna take this town. Whoa, and get a little bit stranger, stranger. Lost in the spaces behind. Hold out a hand in your mind. Don't have to face it alone. It's in the spaces behind, never watching you. It's in your sight when you're blind. And when everything is upside down, when you're yelling but you make no sound, life is gonna spin you round. Whoa, get a little bit stranger. When everything is upside down, a tremor in the underground. The nights are gonna take this town.
Hello, Blazor fans. Welcome back to another episode of State Has Changed. We're going to be working on the BlazePort application again today. This time we'll work with some data and EF Core, start making this a real app. We've got some basic drop-downs and things that we'll be working with, and we need to power those somehow. So we'll create a backend for this thing, and maybe some admin screens and whatnot to do some data entry. So we need to get that kicked off. First things first. It sounds like I got a subscriber coming in here, or yeah, a new subscriber. Let's see. Lost the name as it came up. Sorry about that. Just give me 1 second. I'll give you a shout out here. My console's a little broken at the moment. Here we go. The latest subscriber. Whoops, wrong app again. I am missing an app on my sidebar here. There we go. String labels, where are you? We will get into the app here just in a second. First, I wanted to give a quick shout out. I'll cover this on Friday, but I wanted to give a quick shout out to our engineers at Progress. We have a new release of the Telerik UI for Blazor this week. These new bits just dropped, and we have a brand new tree view, which is absolutely amazing. And you can go multi-levels deep, expand and contract, selection, templates, hierarchical data binding, flat data binding, lazy loading. So we've got a tree view. If I click on these items as they expand out, we're actually getting that data on an asynchronous on expand call, which is totally awesome. So you can do lazy loading with these trees. So we've got like all of the features in here, and we can even do filtering, very simple and easy. If we look up the number 10, notice the filter brings you into the list item that contains that number 10. So that is totally awesome. happy to have some new controls pop up in the Telerik UI for Blazor. It's really coming along nicely. So if you get a chance, check that out at telerik.com. And you can find the demos at demos.telerik.com. That's under Blazor UI. I'll pop that into the chat room. And now that I've got my my control panel up, McNerdius, thanks for the subscription, man. Very nice to have you in the chat room. And thank you all for joining me for the show today. Let's get rolling here. Blazy loading, love it. Thanks on the MVP renewal, Bite Me. This is my 4th year as a Microsoft MVP, and I'm really excited. I get to work with a lot of really great people, so I'm happy to be part of that as well. So thanks for the shout out there. Appreciate it. Let's see. Let's get our app up here. This is the app here. And I think I may have hit the keyboard a couple times by accident. Let me Control Z out of whatever junk got typed into my file there. Hey, Chris, how are you today? Let's collapse this down and look at Team Explorer real quick. Make sure we don't have any changes pending. We do not. And we are currently on the feature of trip cost with machine learning. And today we're actually going to start a new branch because we're going to add entity framework in here. So I'm going to go over to branches here. We need to actually merge this branch into master, the trip cost feature into master. I'm going to swap over to my master real quick so I can do that merge. We'll push those changes up and then we'll start our new branch out. Let's pin this up for a minute while we work on it. I'm going to try to do this all within Visual Studio. Usually I can do all of the Git stuff inside of Visual Studio. So we want to merge, and I'm going to merge from my feature into master, commit changes after merge. Should be good to go. And that repo is updated. May have zoomed in a little too much there. So we're merged into master, and now I can push that change up to GitHub. And that should be good. It's pushing and done. Now we can create a brand new branch. Local branch. This one we will call feature. We're going to say EF core. That should be good enough. And now we've got a brand new shiny branch to work from, so we don't interfere with other things we may have done in the app. I haven't done a new EF core database in quite a while, so there's a potential that we may have to do some work and then blow it out and start over. Who knows? So it's always nice to have a good fresh branch to work from. And it looks like my Solution Explorer may have taken a dive. So let's double check here and see what's going on. Let's go to Team Explorer again. Let's make sure we're in the right branch. We are. Solutions. Should be able to double click here and get back into our project. There we go. That's better. I've got an error. Oh, dependencies are resolving. Everything's coming back online. We'll give it a run here in a second, see if everything is okay. It should be. So there's still some restores happening down here in the corner. You guys may not be able to see it because of the my face is probably over the top of this. But we've got some background tasks running still. So I'm kind of waiting on those while that spins up. Let's go over to some documentation real quick, because we're going to be working with EF Core today. And again, it's been a little while since I've done any EF Core work, and I know things have changed quite a bit since I've been in there last. I've used the what's it called? The in-memory database feature of EF Core quite a bit. but it's been a while since I've been in and actually made a real database. So I don't know what is taking so long to restore. Loading IntelliSense, it says. Interesting. Let's see if it'll let us work. Let's hit run and see what happens. Hopefully we've got all the dependencies we need to run the application. If not, we may have to just restart Visual Studio. That changing of branches might have broke something. I'm not quite sure, but we'll see. Loading up our app. We should have a form that looks fairly decent with a couple drop downs and some output. I'll give it a quick run so folks that haven't seen it before can get kind of an idea of what we have so far. So we are building a travel app that allows us to select a date of travel, number of passengers, and our locations, and then estimate a trip cost. The estimation of trip cost is done through machine learning, and if you want to see how that works, check out the previous shows on YouTube. I'll put a link up in a little bit for that. But we can choose our locations. We have validation in here. I won't go through all the validation stuff, but we can estimate our trip cost, and notice the price change over here, $9.38. So this is calling on our machine learning model to get that from the data on the left-hand side. We still have some other values that haven't been filled in yet. We'll get to those eventually, but what we're focusing on today is these drop-down boxes. And we want to put some additional locations in here. There's actually going to be another subset of boxes that pop up as well. If we go into destinations, we can see where this will end up. The data will show up in these boxes here. These will be our destinations, and then in our destinations we will have our ports of entry. So that's where we're headed with this. And we'll close this guy down and look at our code for that and see where we can start adding some things in. So it looks like it's running fine. I don't know what this background task still running is. It says loading IntelliSense. So I'm going to go ahead and kill Visual Studio off for a second and reload it, just to make sure that we don't get a bunch of red underscores that drive us nuts and make us think we actually have errors when we don't. I don't want to fight problems that aren't real. No fighting ghosts today. Let this guy spin back up, and it shouldn't take long. We just had that project open. It's ready this time. It's still processing tasks in the background, though. Hopefully this time it resolves itself. While that finishes up, let's take a look at what we have so far. And we have in our application side, we have all our pages and views, but I want to focus today on our data. So we've got location details and port details. These guys need to go into a real database. We have our trip configuration too, but this is all form related stuff. We don't need to even look at that. So we want our location and our port details, and we want to put those in a database, and they will actually reference each other as well. So these are in a hierarchy with each other. A location has many ports, and a port has a location. So there's a one-to-many relationship there that we'll have to identify in Entity Framework. So let's see. What we need to start out with is maybe doing a little tab bankruptcy here. Let's close all of our tabs out. And inside of data, actually, let's go to dependencies first, manage those out. We need to, let me think for a second. Is Entity Framework part of ASP.NET Core 3.0? I think it's already in that package. So let's see if we can just do this without adding any dependencies. So I think we should be able to come in here and add a new item. We're going to need a database context. We'll just call this BlazePort context. And what we need to do is have a DB context. And if I control dot and I don't get any IntelliSense, there we go. So this is a nice feature that I was talking about a couple shows ago, and I wasn't sure if it was fully implemented, but it looks like it's on. It is implemented for .NET libraries, Microsoft libraries. I hit Control Period. I don't have Entity Framework in my application yet, so I didn't go to Manage Packages and add Entity Framework. But what is nice is when I hit Control Period, it's prompting me to install Entity Framework on my application. So I want, now this is something that I need to look up. Is it Entity Framework Core? I think this is the new version. Microsoft Entity Framework Core should be the latest and greatest. So we'll go find the latest version and install that. We can also hit Find with Package Manager. Let's do Install with Package Manager and see what we get. And it went to Installed. Should go to Browse. And then Entity Framework is on Preview 6. This is the version that we want. So that is pretty handy IntelliSense feature, but it sent us to the wrong package management tab. So if we do find and install, or we do install with package manager, it brings us to the installed items tab, which we won't find it in there. So now that we know what it is, we'll go ahead and click install here, and it should add it. There it goes up at the top of the using statement, and it installed the package. You saw the red underscores go away, and our DB context illuminate there. So that's a very slick Visual Studio feature that I've been wanting to use for a while and just haven't had it come up in the right context. So good stuff. Windarkata, thanks for following. Appreciate it. Let's see here. Oh, good afternoon, Ancient Coder. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Windarkata. It's nice to have you on the stream. So thanks for sharing the videos in the stream with your coworkers. That's amazing. We've got a great community here that's always working on really good stuff, and I appreciate having you on board. Let's see here. We have our DB context. Let's look at our docs real quick. So we have our DB context. This is what's needed to register our entities with Entity Framework. And what we're going to do, this is the getting started guide that they give. We need a DB set of our data that we've defined. In here they use a blog post example. We're going to have our data that we created for our application. So we need to have a new DB set field added, or property added to our app here. I'll use prop tab, make this nice and easy. And then it's going to be a DB set of, and then we have location details, like that. We'll call this locations. And you even get IntelliSense now for this, which is really nice. It helps you name stuff. And as we all know, as the meme says, naming things is hard. And all the help we can get with naming things will help us get through this day a little faster. So we need port details as well, and we will call this ports. Actually, I'm going to call this one port details instead of shortening it and just saying ports, because I don't want anybody confused with the word ports being data related, interface related, like machine interface. For example, like the port address of the machine or something like that. We'll call that port details, just to be a little on the safe side. So we've got our DB sets, and then we need, what else do we need in here? We need on configuration. I think we can actually skip this part if we're going to specify our configuration from the outside of our DB context. This might be a decent default place to add your your connection string, but I don't want to have it inside of my application or inside of my DB context. I want to actually call that from a configuration file somewhere, so I don't want to add it here. Right, let's see. We also have a one-to-many relationship, and let's see if we've got any documentation on this. Keys, there we go. This is probably what I'm looking for. Yeah, we do need to define a set of keys. So inside of our data, let's take a look at location details. And we have an ID. These, I think, may be automatic if they are ID, but we'll go ahead and be explicit here and say this is going to be our key for this item. And then we have a list of port details, which is a related item in here. And we need to set up, this is nice. I like the fact that you can do the Fluent API version of this as well. In case you don't want to go into your object and annotate these, you can actually do it inside of the DB context on the onCreating method. That's nice as well. And then let's take a look here. Indexes, alternating keys. Let's do a quick search. We want EF core. One to many. It's the type of relationship we have. There we go. Any model relationships. We have all this set up. What I need is the data annotations for it. There we go. Foreign key. And then, let's see, we need to annotate that item. So under location, under port details, when we point back to a location ID, this needs to be a foreign key. Let's see if I got this right. I don't want to type it wrong because it's not added yet. We'll let that add data annotations for us. There we go. It's under the schema namespace. And then if you need to add a foreign key attribute key property, you should specify the name associated with the navigation property. By default, I wonder if it adds. I'll have to double check that, but just so we don't get any errors, we'll go ahead and tell it that location ID. Actually, it needs to be an object. My mistake. This is supposed to be an object here. So this should be public location details, location. Whoops. So we need the ID, but we also need the actual object that is going to fill that space, that connection between the two, and then this goes here, I believe. Let's double check that. So this location details item, the ID is going to match the actual key itself. Yeah. So if we had a blog in their example, the blog foreign key is the ID that matches. That's not a great example, I don't think, but pretty sure I'm getting this right. We'll find out. Let's see, we also have inverse property. What's the difference here? Foreign key versus inverse property. Okay, I don't have one or more. This is how I usually do it. Just trying to stick with the data annotations. I know they're a little more popular, but yeah, this is a little. This makes a little more sense to me, so I may fall back on these. Let's see. Will it work with Cosmos DB? Yeah, we're going to do some work with Cosmos DB. I wanted to start with something a little more familiar first, so I was jumping in with EF Core. Coding Gorilla, looks like you think you're saying that there's ways to work with what we already have once we have Cosmos DB. We will see. I want to do a little comparison when we get down the road further. Of course, supposed to support Cosmos DB. We will see. So we'll have to see how tight the integration is with Cosmos DB. We might be able to flip a switch. Who knows? I haven't done any reading on it yet, but possibly we can. Okay, so we don't need to specify the key on ID. Yeah, I think it looks for ID first. So I think we're all on the same page here. So I'm pretty sure, and everybody in the chat room agrees, I don't really need to identify that this is the key. It looks for the first ID and then uses that as the key. So I could potentially take that out. This is handy if you have multiple things that are an ID, or there isn't something with an explicitly named ID in it. So there could be an ID of some other text here as the property name that doesn't have the word ID in it, and you have to use key to identify that ID because it can't find it automatically. And on foreign key as well. So let's see then. Let's take the foreign key out. Let's make this location. So location ID. Let's see what it will do on its own. Let's drop this one too. Let's see how far we can get without annotating all of this stuff, and see if it will pick up that information automatically. Let's see what happens. And then if we do that and it fails, then we know where to start adding annotations. We'll start from that direction. So we have our context. We've added the things. I may go with the Fluent way of writing that out too. I don't know, it just makes more sense to me than decorating all this stuff, having to dart all around my application to find it. So let's close this guy out. We'll go back to the basic stuff here. We have our DB context. We need to let's see, we've got our DB context set up. We need, I think we're going to need this property here, or what do you call it? Constructor as well. Let's go ahead and add this constructor here. I don't want to add a explicit string in here, connection string. So we'll do this. DB context options, it needs to take in options and apply those to the base class. Make sure everything's formatted here. So it's formatted right? Yeah, that's fine. All right. So now we've got our constructor set up is to accept options, and then we need to register the DB context with our app. Yeah, data annotations is more suitable for view model. I agree. Um, People really like the data annotations for some reason, and they like the. We've got some on our model, so they're handy for specifying the validators, and that's already built in. I still prefer the other way of writing validators as well, the Fluent API for that, but it's not baked into Visual Studio, so people kind of shy away from it still. Let's see. On configuration, we need to give it a connection string and add our context, and then fill in our options. So we'll set this up. We'll set up a connection string, and then we'll eventually move this to a config file. Let's close this out. We need to go into Startup, where all of our application is configured. And then under, let's put some EF core stuff in here. And then just notice my themes are different. Again, I've been doing recordings for some guided, what do you call it? Been doing some videos for some courseware. And I need to record those with a white background. So I'm just toggling my theme real quick. So that might look a little different now that I've changed it over. But I like my theme here. So anyhow, we need to set up a connection string. I always get these wrong. Let's see. I've got an example that we can use. Where did that guy go? So let's break this down. So our connection string is going to be local DB, MSSQL, local DB, database EF getting started. We're going to change the name of that one to BlazePort DB. Connection, true. Too many semicolons at the end. Drop those out of the way. And let's see here. Those purple underscores are going to be spelling errors, but that's the few times that the spell checking plugin gets in my way. And I'd rather have my spell checking on and deal with a couple of these little misguided errors than have bad spelling in my app. And then we need to add the DB context here. Services add DB context. We don't have a thing called a blogging text. We have a Blazor or BlazePort DB context. BlazePort context. Then we need to add that data reference in there. Control period to help us again with that. And then we have options, use SQL Server, control period. Did not help us. So use SQL Server is going to be under EF, nope, there it is, Microsoft NA Framework Core. That namespace needs to be added. It's an extension method, so it's not giving us IntelliSense for it. And let's see if that adding that did the trick. Did not. What namespace is that under then? It might be under extensions. See if that did the trick. Use SQL Server. Come on. Come on. Oh, wait. Let's try it. Using Microsoft EF Core dot. I think we need another. Is it SQL? I think we need another package actually. So let's double check. We'll go to our dependencies, and I think that's actually in another package. We'll type in Microsoft EF Core. This is the one I think we need. Microsoft Entity Framework Core SQL Server. Let's install that. And then in our, okay, that's just the error we're trying to fix. Wasn't under extensions, it's under, does it not add a SQL Server? Did it install? Let's check our dependencies and see if that installed. Any framework core. So the install failed because this line of code is bad? That can't be. Output. EF core. Oh, they're different versions. Okay. So we tried to install a version that didn't match what we needed. It should be preview 6 install. No. Oh, EF Core 2.2. Okay, the EF Core version we have is wrong. Is that why it's showing in updates? What's asking for an update at this point? So I've got a little version mismatch between Entity Framework and the SQL Server implementation of Entity Framework. And it looks like NuGet may be a little confused as well. There we go. Entity Framework Core. Why did it do that? When I installed it, it installed the latest stable version, and I wanted the preview version. That must have been part of the automatic IntelliSense portion. It installed the latest stable. We want that version of it. Oh, I need to go back to manage packages again. Manage NuGet packages. And then MySQL or SQL Server install. That should do it. There we go. Accept all the things. Sign my life away. I don't know what all I accepted in those 2 messages there, but Microsoft now owns everything. Just kidding. Who reads all those user agreements? Has anybody ever read more than like 2 paragraphs out of one of those things? There's a great documentary on that. I don't know if it's on Netflix anymore, but it was called, what is the name of it? I've got to remember this. It's Terms and Conditions May Apply, the documentary. Yep, that is it. Terms and Conditions May Apply, the documentary. If you haven't seen this yet, it is really good. It's a little bit older, 2013 it says, but it was really well done. So if you haven't seen that yet, check it out. That's definitely a good watch. It's a documentary basically on all the T&C stuff that you sign your life away to all the time. It was pre GDRP and all that stuff, so it may be a little outdated information, but it's well worth the watch. The freeze theme, yes, I've read some. Boy, you have a sick and twisted mind, sir. You have fun in a different way than most of us do. Salesforce basically stated that if you install their app and agreed, they own it all. Wow. That doesn't surprise me. And there's all kinds of fun stuff hidden in those TNC messages. So I'm not surprised at all that they try to stake as many claims as they can. I doubt they'd ever exercise that, but if they wanted to, they could. All right, so we've got our service ready to go. We're not exercising this database anymore. Let's see. Create the database. Don't know if we need to actually run this migration. I think if we try to add something to it, then it will do a migration for us. So let's see if we can do anything with this. Let's see. We've added all of the necessary DB context and data sets and all that good stuff. So we have our DB context here. Let's add a page. And under pages, let's add one. I'm going to add a new folder under pages. We're going to call it admin. And under admin, we will add a new file, a new item, and we'll add a Blazor component. Let's see, let's call this one, we'll call this one admin index.razor. And we'll do a quick check in here and see if we can touch this database. So we need to inject it. So we'll use the inject attribute, and we need a actually we need a using statement too. Using BlazePort dot data, and that should work for what we need. And BlazePort DB context or BlazePort context. Might need to rename that to DB context just so we know that it's the database context and not like a memory, not a memory, app state context or something else. So we have that, and then on init, override on init async. This should end up being an asynchronous call. I think this needs to be protected. And that should make this go away. Not all code paths return a value. Well, of course not. We haven't written any code yet. We'll need to return a task. Yeah, I love the dependency injection in this too. Oh, that's probably part of the red underscores too. Is I didn't finish that statement. I need to assign that to something. So we have our DB context now. We need to create a new item of some kind. Let's create a new location. Of new location details. We'll new this up, and we need to set some props on it. And we'll name this test, and we'll give it a description of a test item. And now that we have a test item, we should be able to put it in the database. DB context add async, since we're in async. Add async. Oh wait, we need context dot locations.add. So maybe this won't be async yet. We need to, until we read from it. We'll see. So we'll add an item, we'll add the location. Okay, IntelliSense. I don't need that many semicolon or parentheses. Add a location and then db context save. Save changes async. There we go. And then we're not, let's see, we're not returning, not all code paths return a value. I don't recall having to return something in on-init async. What am I thinking of? Let's just do on-init for now. Return base. You have to, I don't remember having to do that before. Oops, doing this wrong. Well, hang on a sec. Don't remember having to return anything from on-init async though. Is this, did they change something with on-init async? So I don't remember this happening before. Let's see what our docs for on-init async look like. Let's see. Routing, dependency injection, components, forms and validation, routing, debugging. I could have swore that I've used this before. Let's look at, Chris, we'll give you a little plug here on your content. I know this is probably a little older, but still, on-init void is, or basically, yeah, on-init async. Am I missing a keyword? Is that what it is? That's what I'm missing. Jeez. That should make it go away. There we go. So thank you, Chris. That helped immensely. So we would then await here. That should do it. That's what I needed. That is what I needed. Yeah, I could return, but I didn't write this out right is what it was. Did not write that out right. So if I save changes here, I should get an item in a database. And I can do that just by loading this. And I can't get to this component yet because I don't have a route. I need to give it a page route. So we'll call this one admin index. And now I should be able to hit it. And then we can go check and see if we have a database created with a value in it. And if we do, then we've successfully installed and created a database using Entity Framework. I'm pretty sure that's the easiest path. I'm trying to get this as minimal as I can, bare bones as possible. Eventually we need to add like migrations and all that fun stuff in there just so we can make this data populate for people that download the repo and stuff, but we're not there yet. Admin index should take us to a view, an empty view, and it's loading and churning And internal server error. Cannot open the database. Failed to log in for user. Did I set security on startup? Trusted connection, true. Let's try taking that out. Don't even think I need that. Let's try this again. Just keep it wide open. Trying to make it very simple. We'll leave security and all that stuff up to if you wanted to deploy this on a server and do all of those fancy things there. Admin index. Try this again. Internal server error. There's no process in the other end of the pipe. Name pipes provider. Alrighty. I thought we would get a little bit more help from Entity Framework on this. Let's see if it's tried to do anything. I don't have any data connections. SQL Object Explorer. Local DB. Databases. I've got other databases in here I've created. Nothing under here. All right. Maybe I can't skip the add migration path for this. Let's throw our trusted connection back in there. And we might have to make this database manually. I thought it would automatically create the database for you if it didn't exist. Maybe that was the good old days. So we need to drop over into PowerShell. Let's see, I have Package Manager Console open here. And I should be able to paste in an add migration, create, and boom, nothing. Bad command. Tools, Package Manager Console. I have Package Manager Console open, and it doesn't recognize the command. Let's see. This is where I'm used to, I guess, older versions of Entity Framework and things just working out of the box. I've heard that EF Core's been a little bit more strict, and I think I'm running into that now. I don't like the fact that it tells you to use a command, console command that doesn't work without something else being installed. I'm missing some sort of command line tool that I don't have installed. It'll work as long as I create the database myself. Yeah, that's what migrations does, though. What it'll do is it'll add inside of a migrations folder a bunch of information. So if somebody else wants to spin up the same database, they can. Let's see. I'm just making sure I've got everything installed that I need. I don't know why I'm not getting the command line tools. I've got my provider. Registering a context. Done that. Create the database. Let's see if this bit of migration documentation has install the command line tools. There we go. EF Core, Package Manager, Console Tools. Should come with Microsoft.NET SDK. This is a rabbit hole and a half. Installing tools. Okay, let's try that. So I'm going to go into dependencies, manage NuGet packages, and I want Entity Framework Core dot, oh come on, Entity Framework, ENTIT, come on, Entity Framework Core dot, let's see, what was the full namespace? Oh, Microsoft dot Entity Framework Core dot tool. Here, I'll just copy this. Copy and paste. This will get us what we need, I believe. Boom. Okay, install. This is the missing tooling that I was looking for. So add migration, drop database, get DB context, all that stuff is in there. So this will add our command line tooling. And that installed successfully. Now we can go back to the initial docs. I may have missed something when I was reading through that, but I guess maybe that's what it was trying to tell me, and I'm a little bit in the Mondays still. I didn't quite get what they were trying to tell me. So in Package Manager Console, I should be able to now add migration, initial create, and there it's kicking off the tool. And it looks like it's doing a build first because it has to find my DB context within the DLL file. And notice it created a migration folder before it crashed. Darn it. Initial create. Oh, wait, no, it didn't crash. That's the old error. I probably should have cleared this window out. So here's where I typed in add migration create, and it found the information inside of my project, and then it spun up a migrations folder. And this is why I didn't want to create the database myself, is because it's going to create this initial create CS, and then it creates a model snapshot. Now I can say update database. So I've created the migration, I need to apply it. And then anytime I make changes to my DB context, I need to run that tool. Which I think this used to be a little more automatic, but it didn't give you these migration points. And I think that's why it's a little more manual now, is because you have to invoke that to get those migration points. So then if somebody gets my code off of GitHub, they can run through the migrations and create the database. Let's take a look now at our application, and we should be able to run it and add a record to it now. And then under here, I can say admin index. And if I get a blank page, I'm happy. That means it worked. I didn't give it any kind of verbose output of it at all, but if we look, we now should have, let's refresh. I don't think that's quite the latest and greatest. There we go, BlazePort DB. And I should have a table or two, location and port details. Locations should have an item in it. I don't really need a design surface. Maybe I don't want to double click there. I just want to list view data. And there's my test item. So success. If you're setting up a brand new Entity Framework based database, the docs will get you there. Just make sure you have your tools installed or you won't have your command line options ready. So now we have a test item. Let's go ahead and work on this so we can create locations. Thanks, Goran. Right, so we have our admin page. I don't know why I'm getting I'm getting a misspelling. Like, it doesn't understand. Oh, art, really? Admin? I know, like, it's short for administrator, but can't we just add this to our dictionary? All right. Admin, let's see. Let's do a quick list here. And let's list out the items in this data. We don't have anywhere to store this yet. Let's say we have an array of locations. So for each location, we'll just write these out. In a list, and then we'll put a simple form on the page where we can enter some of these in and kind of populate our database. Or we could do this programmatically, but I don't know. This is not an array. Boom. Make that an array. So we'll spit out the name here. Just want a list of names for now. And we need to load that data somewhere. So on init async. We don't want to keep creating this item over and over again. So let's comment that out. And we will take locations, and then we will await our database to we'll list all of them out to an array. Let's see. It's not an awaitable method, is it? To async enumerable. Then we have to turn it to an array. Or we could just be a little simpler with this and say will iList do it? Give us enough interface location details that we can just assign it without turning it into an array. That should do it. I didn't see a toArray async in there. There's toArray. There's toAsync enumerable. But I don't see a toArray async. Maybe there is an additional reference that I'm missing, like maybe it's in link or something. Oh, that won't work either. It still needs to be turned into something. Let's try that. Let's see. Using system.link. I thought link was already, or maybe it's in EF core. I'm coming off an iQueryable, so it's probably in EF core. Add. There's toArray. There's no toArray async in there. System.data.link. I could probably Google this quicker. Nope, still not there. Oh, there is no data.link. System.data.SQL types, common, ODBC. Let's try Microsoft.entity framework core query. System.data.entity. Okay. I'm assuming that one you looked up. System.data.entity. Nope, I don't have that. It must be something I need to install. Let's go to package manager. NuGet. Whoops. Dependencies. Project is running. Let's stop this. Manage NuGet packages. System.data.entity. Oh, entity.repository. I'm not seeing a system.data.entity anywhere. So let me pull this up. toArray async. Queryable extensions under system.data.entity. Under Entity Framework DLL. There we go. So it is part of Entity Framework. So let's see if EF Core has it. So Entity Framework Core. That was old EF. Let's see what EF Core has. There it is. toArray async. Ta-da! Got me sent in the right direction, though, Coding Gorilla. Thank you. Appreciate that. toArray async. Then we don't need the iList. All those, they are compatible. It does implement the iList interface, but we'll just send it over to a list, an array. We'll put in an array, and we will iterate on that thing. And then we have our location name. Let's double check this and see if it works. It should. Go ahead and grab our location, our test location, and stick that up on the screen for us. Then we can put a little form at the bottom. We can hash out a couple of these. So this is going to be under admin index again. And my hand is starting to hurt. I got stung by a wasp while I was working on the pool yesterday, and it is swollen, and I'm trying to type, so this sucks. Oh, this is going to fail. I don't know if there's an actual benefit over one or the other. I was just trying to keep it simple, just giving it an array. You could program it to the interface as well. I don't know if there's memory implications for either of those things. My error, by the way, is that it is trying to look at the locations before the async is finished, and it can't find them, so it then throws a null reference exception. So what I need to do is test that first, and if locations is null, then we're loading. And then else, we're going to loop over the non-null array. So we didn't have a guard in there, and it came to bite me. Just like that wasp. Just like that dirty little wasp. If you didn't catch that, a wasp stung my typing finger, and it is hurting, but we shall stream on. Don't you guys love summer? I know I don't. I moved to a colder climate. I lived in Florida, and I moved north, so I didn't have to deal with this stuff. But I still have a couple months of summer a year, so there's our test message there. And now we can go ahead and put a form on the page and let us enter some data here. So when we init, we're going to spin that up. Let's put together a form. Put an edit form on the page. The model is going to be a form that we don't have yet. So in our code, we have to have location details, and we'll call this one new location, like that. Come on, semicolon. So we have a new location. And then we need to add some fields for it. So we'll put an input text of, and then we'll say bind value. And that value will be new location name. This will be our name input. Make that a self-closing tag. How about that? We need to label it. Label is name. So let's see, we're still talking about the array thing. Yeah, so Coding Gorilla is saying that sending back an array is better than a list because we're not adding items to it, we're only reading it. So that's a good reason to use an array, is to show our intent and to set up kind of an API surface that we want other developers to follow. What was the shortcut? Shift Alt to add a div. We did this the other day, and we wrapped with a div. There it is. Control or Shift Alt W to wrap with an array or a div. And we're going to set a class here to form group. There we go. Form control. So that'll make that look nice. So we have our form group and our form control, and we have a name input. Let's see, div class form control or form group. These are just simple Bootstrap styles that I'm using here. So we'll drop one more label on here, description. And then we want another input. We want input text area. It's going to be a little bit of a bigger text area here because this is going to be our description. Yeah, there's also the I read only list. There's a bunch of different ways we could do that. Text area should also be able to do self-closing. Class form control. Form control, is there a special one? I guess there isn't. We'll have to see how that shows up on a text area. So we have one more form group item here. Let's see, what other values do we have on our location that we want to enter in? I know I have an image URL, and then we have our ports. We'll have to make ports before we can assign them. Just want to make sure that we can add an image first, and a description, and then save that, and then we'll add the port section of this. So we'll have to add the ports before we can assign ports. That'll be interesting. We haven't really done that yet. And then we don't really have images yet either. So these, we don't have any way of uploading images. I'm not going to get into all of that. I think I'll just put, whoops. Let me copy this. This is faster. Boom. And the image URL. We'll need to have images, but I don't feel like I'm going to add an image upload control or anything like that. I'll probably just dump a set of images, and then we'll just point to a URL that's assigned there. I don't think we're going to be doing a whole lot of data entry in here. Once the data is in it, then it's just going to be set in, we probably won't touch it again. So let's see, this is all saved. I'll do a quick build. We don't have any way to save the thing yet. We need to set up an on, I gotta make sure I do this right now. It's gonna be capital on valid submit with no @ sign. That caught us the other day. And then we need to save the item. Save location. We'll save our location on a valid submit. And then we need a button. And the button is just going to say save. And then when we save our item, then we need to new something up. So I've just copied some code that we had before that was our kind of our boilerplate. This is our location. We're going to new one up and assign. Actually, we don't need to assign any values. We already have it. We already have our new location as a field. So new location is here. So we can just save it, actually. We can say dbcontext.locations.add location, new location. This is we're gonna have to change this to a async void async void. There we go. And then some people argue over whether this should be a task or be async void. And if you look through the Blazor docs, it still shows that it's okay to use async void in here. So that's what we're going to do. Not going to worry about it. Not going to debate it today. You can discuss amongst yourselves if you'd like whether to use async void or not, but I'm just going to leave it. That's how I roll. Locations, save async. Whoops. I don't need to go to locations. I just need save async. Save changes async. Not gonna do it, Goran. Not doing it. Not going there. Once we save, we should also be able to clear that location. So new location equals new location details. We should be able to empty that out. You guys can have at it. I heard this is contention among the ASP.NET team, whether you should use this or not. But last time I checked the docs, it still shows void. So somebody somewhere has won that part of the battle so far. Let's see. We're going to await the changes. And you know what? We could actually... I think we could possibly empty this out before it saves, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, let's see what happens. See if we accidentally erase our value before we save it. Save location. We're good there. And then we need to list our locations out again. So we don't want to do this twice. Let's create a new async void again. Let's create a little quick helper method here that will load our locations and then call load locations here. That way we don't have a repetitive pattern of loading the locations everywhere. But that does not work. Can't wait void. There's where we run into issues. Let's see here. That works though. But now it's not lax and awaits, so it's not waiting anymore. So this is where you could actually run into some issues, I guess. With void. So we needed to wait, load locations, like that. There we go. Let's see, what YouTube video is this?
Tune in to the On.NET show.
So we've got task and value task with Stephen and Ridge. I will have to check that out. Thanks for the link, though. I'll have to give that a look. So now we just wrap that up, that call up. So once we add a new task, or a new location, we'll just load our locations again. And that should refresh our view. Let's give this a run. Probably more detail than I want to know. No. Oh, I forgot to wait down there. Dang it. It's already loading the thing. It'll actually probably work anyway. We'll give it a try, but that should be an await statement in there. And unhandled. Requires a model parameter or edit context, and it has both. Did I do that? I don't recall doing that. Model? Did I put the wrong keyword in here? Should have been edit context instead. I used the wrong property. Anyhow, while I fix that property, I will fix this. Why am I newing it up? Because once I save the form, I don't want the data to be sitting in the form still. Cannot be edit context. What the heck? I've got another form I'm going to look at really quick. So on our index page, we have a form, and the model is of form, and the backend or the form is under models, trip configuration. So it's just a class. Why is this giving me trouble? I don't understand. Now I've got tabs everywhere. Close all the tabs. All the tabs. I want to go into my admin. It's giving me trouble with, this should be model, I believe. It says I'm defining a model and a model context, or an edit context, and I don't recall doing that. So let's try running this one more time. See if I can see that error one more time. I know it's going to show up. It doesn't like my form. Why doesn't it like my form? My edit form is blowing up. Wonder if I can't use a entity. Edit form requires a model parameter or an edit context, but not both. How did I not use either or both? I have one defined. There's my model. It's just a location item. I wonder because it's null, but that's what it is. I bet that's what it is. Let's see if that does it. So it's probably trying to bind to a null model, and it can't. So it assumes there isn't one supplied at all. That was my bad. And here I am yelling at the errors. There's no @ sign in front. Is that necessary? We'll see. So the @ sign usage is getting a little confusing in Blazor lately. So I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but some things require @ symbols, some things do not. And there's very nuanced ways of deciding whether you should use it or not. And see, in this case, I was able to use it or not use it. So model doesn't have an @ location, and the submit does. And I think I could actually get away with having it not there. It just depends on whether the IntelliSense sees it or not. So for properties, it's required, or not required, but for directives, it seems like it is required. Maybe that's the way you can tell. So when I use @bind value, it looks for it, but actually that's not a C# thing here, but if I'm using a property, it doesn't seem like it cares. And it works both ways. So let's actually try to exercise the form and see what happens. Call this one test 2. This is a form test. We'll put no image for the URL, hit save, and nothing happened. Let's try refresh, and 2 came up. So it did work. I think I may need a state has changed in here. I didn't think I would, but apparently I do. I thought the onClick handler would supply that state has changed for me. Or maybe I'm doing something wrong with it, I don't know. It could be this void task as well. Let's go ahead and throw task in here just to make sure that's not causing any problems after I trash talked how you can use either or. Just to make sure we're not hitting a lock state or something. Let's see if this works. We threw all the things at it. I threw task and state has changed on it. We'll pull the state has changed off in a minute and see if that was the problem. But it wasn't the @ sign. We know that. It actually committed the change to the database. It's just the fact that it's not refreshing the data on the screen. So we'll pop into our index, admin index again. And a little slow loading this time for some reason. I wonder if it's hung on a build or something. Error list, I don't see anything. Output, looks like it's running. There we go. All right, so test 3. I'll skip all the other stuff this time. Hit save. Boom, test 3 popped in. Our form cleared out. That's why I had that new form there. So it looks like it might have been the state has changed. Let's pull state has changed out, do test 4. Just double check it. Make sure it wasn't that void task. Let's make sure we've got everything working properly, and then we can add some values to our database. Actually, we need to build a similar form for our location. Once we have one of these forms, we can just kind of copy paste, and then we can just spam away. But let's see what happens here first. So let our app spin up. Go back to admin. Let's see if our state has changed is what we needed or not, or if it was the task that wasn't returning. So test 4, or yeah, I don't want to do test 5, test 4, save. Oh, so it was void. So it was, so yeah, don't use async void. Just don't do it. Don't do it. It looks like it was throwing the app into a lock state, and it wasn't refreshing the page after the task completed. So we don't need, yeah, that's why we do these live streams, right? So we can all learn something together, and the hard way of all things. So Yeah, I do know it's in the docs, and maybe it's in just certain places that it's acceptable to use, but I guess if it's going to cause problems, then just default to task. Let's see, Blazor.net. I know it's in here still. I just looked the other day because I was having this discussion with somebody, and I was on the wrong side of that discussion. Maybe it was in JavaScript interop, and there's private async void convert array invoke async string calling state has changed. Boom. So I'm not crazy. I did see async void being thrown around inside of the docs, but apparently in some situations that doesn't work out right. So yeah, don't do that. Don't do it. Yeah, it may that may be the thing. The state has changed. May have fixed it. I mean, we could try it if you want to try it. We can try it. Let's do void, but add back the state has changed. So the task may be calling the state has it may be like the on init function. What the on init function does is it will render the component, it will await. When it has finished awaiting, it then it does state has changed. And if we're doing the async void, it may not be able to hit that state has changed, but if we explicitly call it, then it still may work. But I don't know if that's still the best practice, because maybe there's it doesn't have technically threads in the browser, but I don't know. It feels like a memory issue. It's going to keep something running, awaiting. That's not going to finish. So we'll see. Let's try it. I'm not going to pretend I know everything. So we'll tinker around here for a minute, and then we'll get back on task. So now this is another test here. Test 5. Void. Save. And that worked. So it looks like a matter of state has changed, not being called. I swear that didn't work before. That's, we're going to let that task complete and state has changed call itself. I'm not sure what you're referring to, McNerdius. What do I see on my icon of VS Code? I don't know. Right, so we have a way to add a location. Oh, there's an update to VS Code. I actually opened it by accident in the off screen. Yeah, I must have updated. Oh, yeah, I've got the update too. I don't run that enough. I run it by accident more than I run it on purpose. VS Code. Don't dislike VS Code. It's just the support for Blazor isn't quite there yet. So we can't add a key, a foreign key yet. We're gonna need another page for that. Let's copy this page. It's going to be very similar. And then instead of an index page, we'll have to rename that other one too, reroute that. I need to stop my app from, not rerun it, stop it from running. I'm clicking everywhere now. Yeah, let's see. If I close this, if I kill this browser, and the one that just popped up off screen, yay, I have my editor back. There we go. So I fumbled that a little bit, but admin, locations, we need destinations. So we'll add a destinations page. And if you hear excitement in the background, that is summer happening outside of my window. Kids playing, all that fun stuff. Dogs barking. You name it, it's happening outside. Is it easy to adjust from MVC 5 to Blazor? That's actually an excellent question. Yes, it's fairly easy to adjust because the learning curve on Blazor is pretty short, especially if you already know .NET. The things that are going to catch you from MVC are the component model is much different. So if we look at a component in Blazor, let's find a simple one here. Let's see if I have a simple one. Let's go into the port page here. In our list of items here, this is a Blazor component. So we have an H3 title, an image rendering, a paragraph. This simple bit of Razor markup is actually a reusable component, and everything to make that component work is written inside of this code block in C#. In MVC, if you write out Razor like this, it spits it into, I'm going to oversimplify this. All of this HTML gets rendered into a string. So all of Razor up until Blazor was created is a very elaborate string generation tool. So all of your templates turn into HTML strings. With Blazor, there is something called a render tree. Now that render tree is a DOM abstraction, so it's a lightweight copy of the DOM, and all of your HTML gets turned into a render tree instead of a string, and all the changes are made against that render tree and then applied to the browser's DOM. So that's the big separation between MVC and Blazor, is that MVC is a string generation tool and Blazor is a DOM abstraction. So that's the big one. So the component model is a lot different, but the component model is so simple that the learning curve is short. So hopefully that answers your question about, is it easy to adjust from one to the other? And you're writing little to no JavaScript in Blazor as well. We also have Razor files versus CSHTML files. That may take some getting used to. I know I still type CSHTML by accident sometimes. I closed my form because the IntelliSense was not working and reopened it to make it better. So there's still some quirks too that we need to work around. I changed the page route, and now I need to change this to edit destinations. So a lot of this is going to be renaming again. Instead of loading a list of location details, they're going to be port details. And we're not going to create a new port or a new location. It's going to be a new port. We have port details, new port details. We're not loading locations, we're loading ports. We'll change our query out to get port details back. So this form is going to basically be a copy of the other one, but it's going to load data into another table. So because I make all of my projects in MVC 5 for work and Blazor looks so good, no more JavaScript. Yeah. That is for sure. Yeah, Blazor is a breath of fresh air for not having to write all of that JavaScript. And I'm going to finish up this form, and then we're going to have to end the show. So it's almost 2 o'clock here on Eastern Standard Time, and I've got some stuff to get to, and I can hear the noise, background noise volume picking up. So it'd be best if I just let this go to next Friday. So we're going to create a new port. Let's see, I've got new port. Yep, a new port. And then we can copy this value down. There are more values in the port, and that is like latitude, longitude. I'm going to leave those off for now. We'll add those very soon, but what I want to do is I want to be able to add a port. So next show, when we come on, we can add the hierarchy of a location to a port and assign those. One more question. How does Blazor work with Bootstrap Modal'S? So I know there's some various community projects. Hey, you guys are going to have to hold on just 1 second. I've got something I need to jump off and take care of real quick. Sorry about that. I had to jump out and take care of an animal situation. The dogs got let out and forgotten about, so they're crying at the door. Kids are great for that type of stuff. So I was trying to get a destination admin page up because we have these 2 items that have a hierarchy. So a location has a collection of ports, and we need to be able to assign that. Before we can assign a port to a location, they need to exist. And we need a form to make them. So now I have an admin destinations page that we can navigate to and create destinations. And I still have one rename to do here. And it's port without the S. Once we have this form, we should be able to add a new port. And then we'll have to create a way of assigning that port to a location. So While these forms are pretty similar now, they're not going to stay that way. And let's see, I've still got, oh, this needs to be port details. So now when we save this item, we're saving into port details, and that will give us a port that we can then assign somehow to a location. So we don't quite have those two things connected yet, but we'll do that on the next show. I just want to make sure we can add locations, and then we can start connecting those things together on Friday. And then once we have our admin section built out, we can start putting some real data into our app. So we should be able to come in to admin destinations now. And then the app loaded while I was pressing enter. So now we don't have any destinations. We'll just put destination 1. Hit save, and something didn't go right. So let's see if there's a console error. I bet. Nope, save location. Let's see what the error. Oh, no, I copied this over. So an error occurred. Insert statement. Ooh. Foreign key constraints. So we can't add a port without a location. So here's where we need to have some sort of selection. So on our destination page, what we need to do is have a list of locations that we can then assign the port to. So that's where we need to pick this up next. So on this page, we need a form item. So we'll put a form group here. Because this has that foreign key, we need to have a label for a location, and we need to select that location from a list. And I bet we could very quickly hard code this. So what we need to do is set on the port we need to take that new port, and we need to set the location ID. And that has to be equal to one of our location IDs. I think we have a 1. So let's see if that saves. And then this will be powered by our dropdown. So we'll build that dropdown in here, but for now, we're just going to put a label there, and we'll assign that to the location of 1. And this should get us our baby step. If this saves successfully, we will close out the show and pick up next Friday, assigning this to a drop-down list where we can actually make this a real form. Thanks for answering that question, Goran. Yeah, the Bootstrap, the Modal'S, there's been some projects, some community projects out there. Goran, thank you for linking to that. I think I got a little sidetracked with all the distractions in the background there. So we put destination 1, save, boom, there's destination 1. And now if we go to our database, SQL Server Explorer, if we look at location, if we look at ports, port details, and view data, There is our ID of 2, destination is 1. We didn't put any descriptions in or countries, latitude, longitude, but our location ID is 1. So now this has a parent-child relationship with a location item, which is perfect. That's where we want to end the show. And I'll show one more modal component. Now, I don't have anything against Blazor Strap and Awesome Blazor and all those things that, well, there's a sample at Awesome Blazor. Awesome Blazor isn't a component package itself, but there's other component. I guess for all intents and purposes, what I'm saying is it's great to have the community-based component projects out there. Those are really nice. And if you want something that is a fully managed solution for like your work projects after you start migrating from MVC5 to Blazor at work, we have Telleric UI for Blazor, which has a wonderful window component. So we have this nice window, and you can do a modal pop-up with this as well. So we have our modal pop-up window here. You can set actions and buttons on it right in the title. So you can have really cool action icons and everything. You can set the height and width. So this is a super interactive tutorial here, but you get the idea. You've got a lot of stuff out of the box, and then you can also theme. You can use the material theme. You can use Bootstrap. You can custom theme this however you like. So there's a modal option for you. And not only that, I showed the tree view at the top of the show. This is our brand new one here. The tree view is just absolutely amazing. All the stuff that they packed in. Our engineers did a phenomenal job packing in all these features to the tree list. And you can load hierarchical data into templates directly into the tree view. There's filtering, lazy loading, data binding, all sorts of stuff. So Telleric UI for Blazor is really shaping up to be amazing. Let's take a look at who is streaming right about now. And we will go raid some fellow streamers if anybody is online. The Visual Studio channel is streaming something right now. So what do you guys want to... Would you like to raid the Visual Studio channel or Codebase Alpha, who is regularly in the chat room? I think Codebase Alpha would appreciate the raid and give his audience a little bit of a bump. Let's go check him out. And I'm not sure who's going on the Visual Studio channel right now, but S&B or Codebase Alpha is a good friend of the chat room here at Blazor State has changed, so we will go check him out and see what he's doing. So let's go raid him. We'll see you guys on Friday. We'll do another show here on Friday, and appreciate you guys stopping by on a Wednesday here. And we'll continue with our forum, and we'll get some real data into our application pretty soon. Once we have some real data, we can start theming our app, and it's moving along pretty steadily now. So thanks for joining me today. We'll see you Friday. Enjoy your 4th of July if you're here in the U.S. Take care, guys.
Brilliant.
So we're planning a wedding. How can we make a website to let everyone know?
Okay, and what if I needed to tell